flow. Time to open up another door. See my past in the rear view, but I'm still hearing this.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Gomez and you're listening to my podcast Evolve. My goal is to help those that feel stuck in life, causing depression and lack of motivation. I'll be interviewing individuals with accomplishments and on a road to success. With these conversations, I hope you may find the words that will inspire you to go after what makes you happy. Today, my special guest is an actor, movie producer, trailer movie voiceover, drummer, and a great Frank Sinatra cover singer. You've seen him in movies like 18-Year-Old Virgin, No Vacancy, Only for One Night, Always and Forever, Running Out of Time, and The Delivery, which won first place in a Hollywood Film Festival. Help me welcome Dustin Harnish.
Hey everybody, how are you? Thanks for having me.
So you have a fascinating story, and I would love to start with little Dustin. I understand you were in a band by the age of 12, but what gravitated you to go with the drums?
Drums, I always started playing drums probably from the four years mark, I would say. Beating on pots and pans. My grandparents always had these large chopsticks in their kitchen, and I'd be in the kitchen just rat-a-tat-tatting on the drums, driving everyone nuts.
Yeah.
And banging on anything I can. I'm always kind of doing this. You'll even notice today, Dustin, I'm always moving my feet around, tapping on something. It's probably pretty annoying for most people. It's just something that you have that never goes away. The drums were just in me, making rhythm, setting a precedent for music to evolve. That's what drummers do, and it was just something maybe at the time I didn't understand that, but it was something that I knew my heart was already a part of,
Right. And what was the name of the band that you were in?
The first one, oh man, I think the very first band I ever played in we called it The Next Generation.
Is that right?
I was in grade school, like 6th or 7th grade, and I had a buddy who was a guitar player. I had a buddy who was a bass player, also played trumpet. I was the drummer, and we just started playing like old 50s cover songs.
Okay.
At the time, we lived in Hollister, and we would do the biker rally. We ended up playing like the Hollister biker rally, kind of like every year until I graduated high school and took off out of Hollister. But it was a real fun thing.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the very first band I was in, and then I played in one called Soul Aggression, which it was a Bay Area band, and we traveled around and played with the likes of huge bands that later would go off to be these big acts like Papa Roach. Alien Ant Farm, Trapped. There's so many. We played with Incubus once. I mean,
no way.
Yeah, a long time ago, and we all knew these particular groups were going to go off. Especially, Incubus, of course, and then we only had like one. I got to meet those guys like one time, but Papa Roach, we used to play with them every weekend. There used to be a spot. I don't know if it's still there anymore in Gilroy called the Gaslighter. Okay. It's a little small bar band live music venue. We used to play there with them. We used to play in Vacaville with them, downtown San Jose at the Cactus Club. You name it. It's San Francisco, bottom of the hill. There's all these great places. Like it's bringing back these photos of time in my head, even talking about it. Yeah. And I remember Jacoby Shattuck, the singer of Papa Roach, used to sit on the side of the stage and watch me play.
No way.
When we'd be performing our set with Soul Aggression. And then right before I moved to LA, about 2 years before I moved to LA, I was a singer in a band called Lifted, who had the ex-drummer of a band called Insolence, which was a Bay Area like metal band, and they were pretty big for a while. They toured the world, and then I quit that band, walked away, and moved to LA, packed up all my stuff. Right. The producer at the time of Papa Roach called me because Mark Herman from Insolence, one of their frontmen vocalists, made a call for me to see if they could get me any work in LA.
Damn, that's dope.
And they brought me in, and they had a new group they were working on called Poltrona at the time. And the members of that band were from a previous group called Downset. And I said, hell yeah, grabbed my drums, stuffed them in my car.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not working at this job anymore. I'm going to go to LA and I'm going to pursue my dreams.
Yeah.
And then later got into acting. I played in one more band. That band broke up, the one I was telling you about, Poltrona. They had a deal with Maverick Records. They had all this stuff in place, and they just couldn't get it together.
Yeah.
And so I was left staying on Papa Roach's manager's couch.
No way.
I had no home. I had no money, nowhere to live. And I decided to stick it out and stay there.
And as a drummer, I bet your mom was very supportive since she was also a musician in the 80s.
Yeah. My mom was a phenomenal powerhouse singer. She had one of those voices that you listen to and you go like, man, how did that never make it onto the top charts? How did she never get to that like Mariah Carey sort of?
What genre was she singing?
She did a lot of covers. So it was like, 70s retro, 80s R&B, pop, a little bit of funk, some soul, a lot of R&B stuff. Like growing up, our influences, because of what my mom would listen to, it was like Earth, Wind and Fire, Anita Baker, and then the Eagles. There's so many. I'm missing a ton, but there's so many groups. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Kool and the Gang, like all these groups my mom would listen to, that stuck with me.
Do you have any recordings of her?
Yeah, of my mom?
Yeah.
No.
I
wish I did. I wish I did. It was too long ago. You look back in those times and we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right. No YouTube.
No YouTube. No way to capture those moments unless there was literally someone filming it out in the crowd and saved it all those decades later, But I'm sure she's got something somewhere laying around that she might have, but she was phenomenal. And what I'll always remember about my mom, even one day when she's long gone, is the way she always sang in the kitchen and sang in the car and while she was cooking and had music playing and singing along to the words because she knows the words to almost every song. And I kind of take pride in that myself because it got me into the same thing. And before we started here, we were talking about music outside. And music's just played such a huge, influential part of my life.
Yeah.
And my mom has pretty much all to do with that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And then at what age were you getting bullied and how did you handle the situation? Because I know you come from a bloodline of boxers, but being a lover, not a fighter, it must have been conflicting.
Segue. Yeah. So my parents were divorced when I was pretty young. I was about five or 6 years old. And my mom and I had to move up north. I was born in Orange County, but I was basically raised up in the Bay Area. And so the way that started was they divorced, and my mom and I moved up in with my grandparents and my uncles in San Jose. And man, that was a really rough, trying time for both of us. I can only imagine how hard it was for my mother, being a single mom, not having a man by her side. Having sort of a crazy family that, was into all kinds of stuff. And my mom was just trying to keep her head on the straight and narrow and raise a kid.
Right.
And her and I had to share a twin bed in a little tiny room for a couple years and sleep in the same bed. It was I'll never forget it. It was a little twin bed with these little palm tree prints on it. And we had nothing, and my mom had to work and scrape to get us out of there. So to go back to the bullying thing, I had this sort of dark thing going on. I was distraught all the time. My dad was missing from my life. I had this hole in my life. Would kind of mess with any boy,
Right.
And
how old were you at the time?
That was about that age. I was almost 9 years old by the time we had moved in with them because we had bounced around a bunch. And what I was alluding to with the bullying thing is I was never in one place too long. I was always the transplant, the new kid in school. And no one ever really could quite figure me out. I played football. I played football all the way through the Pee Wee years into high school. But I loved people. I just wanted to be friends with people, and they wouldn't gravitate towards me like that. They just wanted, I don't know what the threat was that I opposed to them, but they always sought me out and wanted to beat me up. And there was just something there. I don't know what it was, but that's just kids, and if you're not a part of someone's group or clique, or if you're an outsider to them, it's kind of in human nature to want to boot that person out. And, you know, it's part of our primal sort of animalistic instinct, I think, that we overlook a lot. And we can go way down the weeds on that one. But I think that's what I was a product of in the bullying spectrum. I got bullied a lot. I had to basically either run for my life or turn around and fight.
And then how was high school? High school years?
High school was basically the same thing. I had a horrible time. I get so jealous when I hear all these people always talk about, oh, dude, I loved high school.
Yeah.
I had such a great time. I lost my virginity, did all kinds of drugs, you know, partied like an animal. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
I was pretty much just trying to, you know, save my own ass every day I went to school. There was someone after me over there, and that was in Hollister, California. You know, the weird sort of fork in the road about all that is I made some of my best friends in my life at that time also. Chris and Russell Baldwin. Shout out Chris and Russell Baldwin. Shout out to those guys. They were a couple badass dudes, tall, skinny boys, but they were jiu-jitsu masters. By the time we were in high school where I met them, these dudes had a class. They were teaching taekwondo and jiu-jitsu down the street. So it was like they got me into it a little bit. And I learned how to defend myself. I learned how to just throw a punch right. More than that, though, how to avoid, you know, confrontation, how to avoid situations. But I think a lot of those moments in my life made me realize what being a man is all about, but not just being a man with your fists.
Right.
You know, being an intellectual man, being an empath. I saved myself from getting absolutely annihilated one time by this huge guy who's like the star quarterback of our school at Hollister, San Benito High School. This guy's name was Ryan something. I can't remember his last name. God rest his soul. He's dead. He died. A lot of those bullies, weirdly enough, they died. Couldn't tell you how. I know, but when I moved to LA, I remember every year I'd hear about one dying, another one dying, another one passing away. Weird deaths like car accidents, drunk driving, OD on pills, choking on their own vomit in their sleep. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they had it coming to them, because I don't think that's right. And they were kids at the time. And, you know, you really got to look at what's going on at home with people like that. You know, it's so easy to go, you know, F that guy, you know. He's a jerk, he's an asshole, whatever. But the reality is the kind of treatment that person's probably taking at home, or a lack thereof. Abuse, sexual abuse, you know, bullying by their father, their uncle, their grandfather, their older brothers, whatever it is, or a lack of attention.
Yeah, they say hurt people hurt people.
Hurt people hurt people. Yeah. And you start to get a flavor of that when you're on the brute end of it. And at some point you just go, enough. And you end up facing someone and you talk to them. And that's when, like I was saying, I saved myself one time, because like, this guy was just about to let me have it. And he didn't like the group of guys I hung out with, and therefore I was associated with these people he hated, so now he hated me, right? That's high school for you. Yeah. And he was just, you know, saying everything horrible and humiliating you can say in front of everybody, right? It was a moment of truth for me, because in that moment I looked at him and I said, hey man, I'm no threat to you. I don't know why you have these feelings towards me, but I said, maybe we can talk sometime. Are you okay? Is there anything going on with you? And it just locked him up. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to react to that. But he didn't beat me up. Yeah. And everyone was just kind of like looking around like, yeah, fuck him up. Yeah. You know, but they didn't. He didn't. And his friends were just kind of like, yeah, okay. And that kind of gave me a real moment of clarity, that when you're in a moment of truth like that, you know, what do you do next? Who do you want to be? Are you going to be the sourpuss? Are you going to be the hurt, wounded guy that ends up probably becoming just like him? Or are you a leader? Even if you're not thinking all that in the time, that's what it ends up becoming, because you decide for yourself, I'm going to stand up to this, but I'm not going to stand up to it like this. If I had to, I would, but I don't want to do that. No,
It'd be easier.
Yeah. And not only that, nobody ever wins with these.
No.
Even the guy on the ground that lost, you still lost. You're hurt, you're damaged. Then you have to think about that. You have to go home. You have to think about the repercussions of that. You could possibly go to jail.
Right.
There's a lot of outliers with all that, but I find it so much more constructive to break bread with somebody than break bones with somebody.
Ooh, I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and it's healthier.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's choosing the harder road, because it's easy to just throw fists, but like you said, nobody wins. Nobody wins.
No one wins. And when you're only trying to damage and you're only trying to inflict wounds, you're losing. You're losing the opportunity to gain knowledge. You're losing the opportunity to gain the wisdom and respect of somebody else. It's just a loss all around. Rather than sit and hash out something with your words and the intention behind your words and mean it from a genuine place, I feel like that's far more constructive than just whooping ass.
Absolutely.
You know.
And what was the conversation to yourself like when you said that you were moving to LA to pursue a music career?
I always wanted to go down there and pursue just my career as an artist, and I was very ambiguous in thought onto what that would be. However, I did know that I wanted to get into the theater. I loved music. I never thought I would leave music. I never thought I would quit being a band member or a drummer or a singer or anything like that. And just like I was talking about before, the whole approach with going to LA for a band and it breaking up was kind of just like, it just showed me, you probably have another path in the art field. Maybe you should check it out and pursue it, because right before I left high school, I enjoyed taking a theater class where they casted me as Hamlet. It's a Shakespeare play, one of the most famous ones. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had no idea. I just knew that I should be there. And I like to perform. And besides just performing, I like to tell stories. I like to read stories out loud from books. I like to put them in my own words, my own voice. It's very similar to writing music and then putting it up on stage and telling the story that way. It's just a different format.
Yeah.
But getting to LA for music was inevitably what brought me into the movie business.
Right.
And I'm forever thankful for it.
So I came across a story that you and your buddy Connor Gomez drove from the Valley in suits with no AC just to meet an agent. Was this the normal hustle for you at the time?
Oh man, I can't wait for him to hear this podcast. Where did you find that story?
Research. Instagram.
Dude, that's cool, man. Yeah. Thanks for looking into that. He is my all-time brother from another mother. Connor and I, we spent a lot of time in LA together, just developing our craft, being buddies, doing everything together, like everything, because we had the like-mindedness to want to be actors and want to get really good at it. And we had a little bit of an outreach of a couple connected people in the business that saw something in us that were able to give us good, clean, sound advice, at times some really bad advice. But you need a mix of both. But then you end up doing it and getting your own feet wet. You know, so yeah, we have many stories like that, where we had been driving across the valley, sweating our dicks off because it's just so hot out there. And he laughs so hard because I get really hangry, and I also hate being really hot.
Yeah.
And we live in the valley at the time where it gets the hottest in LA. And we're driving his car because I didn't have a car. Mine got repossessed at the time. This is how broke I was.
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But like, he would laugh because he's like, "Oh, dude, you need to eat something. You need to eat something." So I'm like, they were effing this one, effing that. Yeah. It just got me into the wrong headspace to go in and have a meeting.
So how did that meeting go?
Not great. But you know what? You always end up pulling yourself back when you, like, just life has a way of throwing all these curveballs at you, but it's up to you to get yourself recentered, zero the rifle, if you will. Like, find your focal point and just like take a breath and chuck it all at the door.
Yeah.
So that way you can walk in with a good attitude. My father, Michael Harnish, something I'm so proud to carry with me that he's always said to me, that is, always show up with a good attitude, and your day and everyone's day around you will go better. Your workload will go better. The way you make decisions and choices will be better, because if you show up with a good attitude, you can't lose.
Right.
If you can't really let much affect you, you know? And I'm a slow learner. It took me a long time to gravitate and adhere to that. But it worked. And I carry that with me to this day still, because it resonates with me a lot.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say, like, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it.
What you do next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And what was the feeling like when you were cast in your first film?
Euphoric. So I was a valet boy, and Connor actually was the valet. I got Connor a job at the other one, at the location up the street from us. You know, because, like, dude, always help your homies out, right?
Yeah.
And he's Canadian, so he couldn't get really like a normal job anywhere. He didn't have a green card. So his visa was expiring at the time pretty soon, and he needed a job. And the guy has a solid work ethic. Like, he wasn't trying to sit around anywhere. He always had to be at work. Really inspiring he was, and it still is. So he worked at the LA, it was called the LA Studios / Margarita Mix. Very famous voiceover studio in Los Angeles. They do everything there. So I was meeting everybody there, right? Parking their cars. 110-degree heat in the valley. You know, long blonde-haired Dustin with tattoos on his arms. I looked way different at the time. I was skinny. I was starving, you know, so I wasn't eating much. I'd lived out of my car for a while. I'll get to that in a little while too. But one day, shout out to Griff First and Christy Romano. Christy Romano used to play the voice of Kim Possible. It was a animated TV series.
Yeah.
And Griff First is a film and TV director. His father, I believe it was Steve First, was a commercial director for a long time, which is how he got into it. Anyway, parking her car one day, and she goes, "Hey, I'd really like for you to meet my fiancé, Griff." And I go, "Oh, okay." She goes, "You'd be perfect in this movie he's doing. We all know around here you're trying to be an actor. A lot of people have given you some meetings. Like, they've watched me over there." And I used to have these great conversations with some of the most outstanding people. I mean, it would sound like I'm name dropping, and you probably wouldn't believe me, but it was pretty wild, some of the people I met and got to know there. Anyway, she goes, "Yeah, I'm going to bring him with me next week. I want you to meet him. Give me your headshot. Do you have a headshot?" This is back when we used to carry your headshots in your back seat.
Right.
Staple your resume to the back side of it. Pain in the ass, costs a lot of money. It's funny how when you're trying to become an actor, how everything is so ridiculously expensive to be an actor, and so nearly impossible. It's already impossible to get a job, but they make it even more impossible for you to try to become one, to become an actor. It costs so much money and so much of your time. You're always at risk of losing your job because you got to go on a second's notice.
Yeah.
So she brought him with him the next week. I'm parking their car. He's like, "Hey, I'm Griff. Hey, Dustin, I've heard a lot about you." And I'm just sitting there going, "Yeah, great, awesome. I've heard a lot about you." And he's like, "Let's talk. When I get out of the session, let's talk." Perfect. So he comes back out and he's like, "Hey, you know, why don't we meet up and do something?" I said, "Hey, I live in a building where I've got a really rad barbecue area. I love to cook. I cook a lot. It's one of my favorite hobbies in the world." This sounds ridiculous, but I said, "How about if we barbecue some shark and we smoke a little weed and we sit down and we have a conversation?" And he goes, "I like that." He's like, "I like you, man." That was a risk, you know, like, you don't really, back then, you know, and weed was so like taboo still. Like you didn't, they looked at you like losers if you smoked it, even though everyone smoked it.
Yeah, this was early 2000s?
This is mid 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, like 2006, 2007. And it worked. And, you know, I was just genuine with him, and he was a very genuine guy. I got to give the same respect back. That's what you should always be, you know, as yourself. And he took on to that, and he said, all right, what time and place? And I said, here's my address, this time, and boom. He comes over, we do our thing. I'm barbecuing shark. She's with him, and Connor's there, and we all know each other because they go over to the other studio, and he'd park their car over there.
Yeah.
So this is like a really cool coinkydink.
Yeah.
And at the end of the evening, they're about to wrap it up and get going, and he plops a script down on my coffee table and says, read that and get back to me. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd only been doing extra work for a while at that point on the show Entourage. Shout out Kevin Conley. He's a good buddy of mine. He played E on that show. He's a good buddy of mine. Love that guy to death. And Doug Ellen. Shout out to Doug Ellen, the creator of Entourage. I started like my acting career basically doing extra work on that show. They wouldn't remember that, but I do. So I read that script, right? It was called, at the time it was going to be called Prehistoric, and it ended up becoming this ridiculous title called 100 Million BC. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anytime anyone ever brings it up to me, they go 10 million, 100 billion thousand BC. I'm like, oh yeah, that one. So here's the fun part of it. I read it all in one night. I go to bed finally at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea how to read a script. I hadn't had any training yet at that point. I'm only like 22 or 23 years old. I got started acting kind of late in life, right? And I call him up and I go, okay, I've read this thing. You want to sit down and talk about it? He's like, yeah, all right, I'll come over after work. He comes over. We're sitting there, we're talking. And I go, I want to play this character, young Frank Reno. Because it's the time travel. I can play the guy that's not the lead, but kind of the part like that. Like, I want to go for that part. I think it's good. I like it. It resonates with me. And he goes, yeah, but that part's already casted. And I go, oh, shit. All right, well, he goes, why don't you play one of the Navy SEAL dudes? I'm like, no, dude, I don't feel it. I'm like, I got to play this guy if I'm going to do this with you. Thank you for the opportunity. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. No worries, no hard feelings whatsoever. I'm really appreciative of this whole endeavor that you're even giving me this look. And I said, but that's the guy I would play if I'm going to do this with you. Otherwise, it's just not the time yet, right? And he goes, all right, fuck it. You got the part. He goes, the other guy's fired.
Damn,
I'm going to give you the part.
Like that.
And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to pinch myself. I'm going, shut up. You know? And he's like, no, man, I'm serious. I'm like, okay. When do we start? Where I want to come to set early. I want to walk around and be the guy that is playing the lead, because there's time travel in this movie. So the lead guy is an older guy. He was in the movie Tremors. He plays the guy with all the guns.
Oh, yeah,
His name's Michael Gross, the crazy kind of like Hunter S. Thompson looking guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I know that guy. He's in it. And I know of that actor. I used to love the movie Tremors when I was a kid. I'd love to walk around him, follow him around, not bother him, but just get a sense of how he walks and talks. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of following my instincts. And he goes, that's actually a really good idea. He knew I was green. You know, like he knew I had no training. But he saw it in me. So he gave me the chance.
That was a huge risk you took.
Yeah.
You could have took a small part and be part of something, but you really wanted that other part.
Yeah, go for gusto. I would say that to any of you out there. Don't just half swing the bat. Swing for a home run every time, because you're shorting yourself if you just settle on anything.
Yeah.
You should go for what you feel your heart is going towards, and your heart and that inner voice speaks to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to listen to it. Sometimes you're wrong. Not always, though. Most of the time, that inner voice, that gut voice, that voice in the back of your head, it's usually right. And you have to listen to that.
Yeah. Take me back to when you were living in your car.
So I moved down to LA, and I'm trying to think about how I can word this so I don't throw anyone under the bus.
Take your time.
Because my mom and my stepdad, they hate hearing this story because they had to basically just let me go. And, they told me, listen, you can stay at home and we'll send you to college. We'll help you out with that. Or if you go and do this, it's on you. Right? And this is your choice. This is your deal. We're not going to help you with that. And that was really hard, because it was scary. And obviously their lesson, what they were trying to teach me had a huge impact later, right? Mm-hmm. But in the moment, when I got there and that band broke up and everything started to happen and I had nowhere to live, I had no money to my name, I had a flip phone, and I had a drum set in my backseat. At least I had a car. Okay, I don't want to bitch that hard. Yeah. But because there's, especially right now in LA, there's a lot of homeless people, and it's so sad, and my heart breaks for them every day. A lot of them are mentally ill. Mm-hmm. Now, I was homeless for about 2 years, but I wasn't crazy. I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't using any drugs. It was just hard. It was really hard. It was the most ultimate challenge I've ever had in my life. I had to eat garbage. How you see homeless people eating garbage out of a dumpster? I did that. Had to go to the bathroom behind a building or on the sidewalk once in a while. But for the most part, I was able to charm my way into certain situations, talk to people. Hey, because I was clear-eyed. I wasn't abusing drugs or mm-hmm. alcohol. I just didn't have any money, but I could still find a way to make myself look clean mm-hmm. and not grungy and dirty. And let's be honest, in real bad, severe moments, if I needed something, my parents would send me a couple bucks mm-hmm. to get some food or something. But yeah. It wasn't they wouldn't just throw a bunch, they wouldn't just give it to me. It was I had to earn everything I've ever made myself in LA. I don't come from a wealthy background. My parents are doing well today, but back when I was a kid, that wasn't an option. I could just live off my folks. That wasn't an option. No. My stepfather, Hugo, didn't give his kids that option. They had to work for what they had. But we're all better for it. You know what I'm saying? The grass is greener on the other side. I went through that time, and it was probably supposed to be that way, because I don't think I'd taste the sweetness of the glory and the victory of success if someone just handed me that. That would be false. It'd be fake. Right. I had to go and earn it. And I think anything worth a damn in life, you have to earn it. You have to bleed, sweat, and break your back for it. Otherwise, what's it worth? Yeah.
Where'd you get your work ethic from?
My mother and my father and Hugo, mm-hmm. my stepfather. And I have another stepfather. My mom was married one time before Bill. His name is Bill, before she married Hugo. Mm-hmm. Hugo's been around the longest. Obviously, I love him to death. He's I couldn't say enough good things about him. I'm also very, very lucky to say that I have 3 father figures in my life. My dad's an amazing guy. I love him to death. My first stepdad, Bill Ladd, love him to death. He's just an amazing man. I'm not his blood. He has a whole family of his own. And when him and my mom divorced, he didn't have to stick around in my life. He did. Today, still to this day, I'm 39 years old, and Bill Ladd is still, I call him Pops. Mm-hmm. All 3 of my father figures, I call them Pops because they all have a special role in my life as fathers, where one wasn't there for a while, another one was. And then there was times like today where they're all there. So yeah. I'm lucky. We're having a moment with my father in the past was hard for me and hurtful, and I had to do a lot of growing to make sure I didn't become a dark guy from that situation. I'm better for it today, and I think all of us are. You know, my dad, myself, my stepfathers, my mother, my stepmother. All of us, we're all better for it today because everyone was really just looking for happiness, and they all finally found it.
Yeah.
And it took me the longest to dig myself out of all of that darkness and confusion. But one thing I always had going for me was my mother. Mm-hmm. And she always made sure, no matter what, even in some of my darkest times, that I had love, I had care, I had nurture, I had someone to talk to. I could always talk to my mother about anything, dude. And that saved me because I never had to run off behind her back. I never had to lie to her. And I guess that's shaped who I was. I never had to really be a liar.
Right.
You know, I don't like liars. It sucks. It must suck to have to be a liar all the time because you're constantly having to cover for a story, make something up, look over your shoulder. I never wanted to be that. So, thanks, Mom.
Was there ever a moment where you wanted to give up and go home?
I think there is for just about anybody. Had to dig really deep. I've had to dig deep in my life. You know, I think football taught me that. Yeah, there were some moments in there that I wanted to. It's not that I wanted to give up. It's just that I didn't have any more answers. I didn't know where else to turn. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who else to talk to. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any support. It all started going downhill. I wasn't getting any jobs. And that plays on your esteem, on your emotions. Because then you start to feel, that's when the devil takes over. Because you start to feel like, am I good enough? Mm-hmm. Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? Are people going to listen to me? Are people going to trust me? Am I ever going to find a wife, a girlfriend? Am I lovable? All these things start going through your head, and that weighs on you, because the business I'm in is a very 1 percentile business. It's nearly impossible to make a career out of, and you're lucky if you have one. It tries you like that. It's like being in a boxing match. How hard are you willing to be able to get hit in the head, maybe potentially get knocked down or knocked out, but then get back up and dust your shoulders off, dust your face off, cleanse yourself of all the negativity and find that center in yourself to decide, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to punch the devil in the mouth. And that's your mirror. You know, once you can finally see the mirror of yourself and have that clarity and be transparent with yourself, that's when you can finally be clear and transparent with everybody else. And it's just a learning lesson. It's growth. I didn't give up.
Yeah.
I didn't go home. I didn't go back to live with my mother. Never. Not one time. I just found a way. And that's all. And that's what gets me out of bed every day is the fear. The fear of not just failing, but the fear of not completing my mission. So,
what was some of the things that was pushing you at the time?
Poverty, heartbreak, wanting to prove to my mom, Hugo, my dad, my family, that I could do what I said I was going to do, that I could make something of myself in this world without their help. And they helped me, don't get me wrong, but they, like I said before, they couldn't just give me what I was after. Mm-hmm. And nobody could. You have to do it. You have to decide for yourself, I'm going to get this. And you work, and you work, and you work, and you keep pushing up and pushing up, falling down, getting up. You have to fail a lot. You fail a lot before you succeed. Failure is a part of succession. Without it, there is no succession.
What was your greatest failure?
That's a good question. My greatest failure, I would have to say, would be not mending the relationship with my father earlier. That's my greatest failure. Because that caused such a dark rift between him and I for so long that I carried it around with me, and it probably wore on me everywhere I went. That dark cloud probably played on in my meetings, with agents and managers and potential job offerings from people, producers, directors. And maybe in certain moments it helped me because they saw that I could play this kind of dark character and just get there. You know, it's a trigger, right? But I'm actually like a happy-go-lucky, loving guy, and all I've ever wanted to be was loved by the people that are close to me. And I love to just make new friends, and I think it caused a complex in me that I've found a way to finally get rid of. But you know that feeling when you always feel like people are talking over you and you can't get a word out, and it starts to make you feel puny and worthless, like no one's listening to you, like you can't be heard, your voice can't be heard. There's an interesting dichotomy at me being an actor with that, because in those moments I'm actually allowed to be heard, but it's not about me being heard. It's about me playing someone else's life. It's about me telling someone else's story. And that's the way that I get to channel a piece of myself, because you have to leave a mark on that. You know, when you play a character, there's a piece of yourself that you either lose or you gain every time because you put it into that role. You know, whether you're playing something completely opposite of yourself, this is still your breathing, walking, living tool that you have to put into that story piece and make it come to life, you know.
Right.
And so you have to be comfortable in your own skin to take your most deepest, darkest secrets, the things that humble you the most, and you have to be able to put that on display for people to pick apart.
Yeah.
You know, but the ultimate failure has always been how I've ever failed myself, by making either the wrong choice in the wrong moment. But really, you know, if I'm being honest, it's not mending the relationship with my father early enough. Him and I are great today, and he would tell you that he's so happy for it, and I am so happy for it. I love my dad so much. But we didn't get to that place soon enough. And it caused me to be sort of a dark guy for a while. And then not having money and not having any, it kind of gives you no faith. But for some reason, it gave me this inner strength to fight back. You know, kind of like when I was being bullied. It's a different correlate. It's not really correlated, but they're two different things, but they sort of coincide a little bit, because it's, again, to that moment of truth of like, who do you want to be? How are you going to react to this? What are you going to do next? But I do regret that, not bringing that together with my dad soon enough. And yeah, you know, but I'm glad for it today. You can't really have regrets. You can't really look back. You really just need to stay looking forward, you know?
Right. No, I think, yeah, you really shouldn't be regretting anything in life, because things happen for you, whether you know it at the time or later on. And then back to you know, acting. How important is it having a manager?
Crucial. You know, shout out to Corey Simon. He's my manager over at Cultivate Entertainment. He's amazing. When you have a manager like him, and for me, that's the first time in my career I've had someone dedicated who's working 24/7, is just a lovely human being to converse with, be around. I love hanging out with him. He's like, even if he wasn't my manager, I'd be friends with him. Like, he's a great guy. It's crucial, because you need someone to know you, how you work, what you're workable as, what you can fit into. They need to be able to pitch you and see all of the possibilities that one could be. and they find a way to pitch that about you, and they lift you up, they elevate you, they motivate you. They make sure you're on time to this, you're on time to that, you got this phone call, you've got this meeting. They're always looking out for your next opportunity. The idea is that they have your back. You know, everyone's getting paid, and without me getting a job, they don't get paid either. But Corey isn't about that. My manager is really a phenomenal, lovely guy. You know, I'm not making millions and millions of dollars, right? And he knows that, but he's trying to build me up to be a household name like that. But he's putting in the work on me, and he's giving me a chance where no one else did. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's very crucial. And for that, I'm forever thankful.
How'd you guys connect?
The NAACP Image Awards. I had a ensemble cast nomination for the ice cream stop. We were nominated for an NAACP Image Award this past March. Oh, cool. It's a social justice movie starring Ty Edwards, directed by a good friend of mine, Raul Perez, who's also the director of my latest and newest upcoming project that I'm starring in, The 4 Points. It's a movie about social justice, racism in the police force, and just all around how to be a good person and not think the ways some of these guys think. There's a lot of themes in this, man. If you don't mind me embellishing on that a little bit.
No, go ahead. Oh.
You know, the black community. I was lucky enough that where in a time in my acting career, really nothing was happening for me. And a man named Chris Stokes and Marcus Houston, God bless you guys. Shout out to them. They picked me up and started giving me jobs, you know, in every movie they could possibly throw me in. They would always think about me and put me in something. And I'm forever thankful to them for that also. But it also sort of started giving me a little bit of a name in the black film community, which is really cool because, I mean, how weird, you know, as a white dude, mm-hmm. you know, to get an opportunity like that in their culture. And I say that like that because I'm just making it black and white for the moment, but really, as people, all of us, we're all brothers and sisters, but our country is so divided.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to paint things out like that for people. It's so dumb. But they brought me in, and you know, they started giving me a lot of jobs, and then one thing led to another. I'm working on BET movies, you know, Netflix movies, the All Black Channel, Tubi, a couple different things. It started like that, and then this ice cream stop movie came along, and with Raul Perez, and him and I did a short film way back in the day, 2010, about the Joker, and mm-hmm. I've always wanted to play the Joker and the Batman Joker, maybe one day, and I got this opportunity for a NYFA, New York Film Academy student mm-hmm. film project, and I got casted off an audition. And that's how Raul and I met. Raul was an assistant on that. He might have been a cinematographer on that. I don't remember what his exact role was, but he was in the camera department at the time. And now he's a director today, and he's a really, really good one. He's going to blow up. I think our movie, The 4 Points, is just going to send him off into like David Ayerville. You know who David Ayer is?
No, I don't.
End of Watch, the famous cop movie. Oh, dude, he's so many. Amazing. Sabotage. He's done so many amazing movies. David Ayer. It's a dream of mine to work with David Ayer one day. I just love his style as a director. In some of the recent films that I've done, I noticed that for the directors and friends of mine that I work with, they're fans of his too, because mm-hmm. you can tell a little bit of the influences there. So David Ayer, if you're listening out there, I'd love to work with you. It maybe one day, right? So they casted me in this ice cream stop thing, and I got a call from my buddy saying, hey, I want to put you in this, Raul Perez. Mm-hmm. And my buddy Ty is executive producing, but he's the star of the movie. Big black guy, mm-hmm. yoked. He's huge, right? He looks like a football player. He's big. Supreme body, bro. Like, I wish I was built like this guy. Handsome dude. And the idea of the story was to paint the image that is often, more than not, often misrepresented, and that's how the black community feels. They're so misrepresented in certain aspects of their culture. You know, he wanted it to look like he had this beautiful family, had a pregnant wife, and he had a prestigious job. The story is about a black surgeon coming home after saving 2 car crash victims that happen to be teenagers. One dies, one survives, okay? Comes home from that surgery all day. It's 3 a.m. His wife's pregnant. She sends him back out for ice cream because they have a cute relationship like that. He'll do anything for his queen, right? On his way back from picking up ice cream from the store, he gets pulled over. He's getting profiled by these 2 white cops. And during the time, this is when the George Floyd thing happened. So pretty ironic. But it gave this movie some legs. It was really interesting. It gave it a lot of steam. They pull him over, and I don't want to spoiler alert it for you, but something really bad happens, tragic, to where it leads to the realization of the kind of evil and the kind of wrongdoing that some of these people are doing in the police force. I'm not going to say all of them. I've got a lot of cops in my family. I appreciate cops to the fullest. So I hope this doesn't sound like I'm bashing cops. And I've always tried to make it a point not to bash from any point of view, because really that's not my perspective. But I have to empathize with their side of it in the black community or any other community, right? So they asked me to do this part because they felt like I'd serve it justice, and I'm playing this like racist white cop. Dude, and the language that I have to say in it is just disgusting. But they trusted me to do that. And that was like a gift, like the ultimate gift that you could ask me to do. Yeah, it was terrifying, but it was really a gift, because the challenge as an actor, you're hungry by your curiosity, and you're constantly looking for the next challenge. You know, it's not about the money. It's not about lights and glitz and it's really about how can I dig to this next portion of myself to learn something new about not just myself, but about society in a story like this, right? It's just, there's so much to learn from it, and so much to gain as a person, as an individual, as a human being. It gives you this duality and perspective of what they're going through that you might not have seen, you know, and now you see it, now you understand it, which gives you a way more palpable capability to play it. So I took the part.
What was the process to get into that character?
Rigorous workouts just to get the body right, but also watching, this is odd, I watched a lot of like LAPD YouTube videos, because I'm playing an LAPD guy. I talked a lot with my father. My dad's an ex-Orange County Sheriff Lieutenant, and his wife, Marcy, shout out to Marcy, was a sheriff deputy as well. That's actually how they met. In Orange County. And then my uncle Steve, my dad's best friend, I call him Uncle. He's an undercover, like badass vice cop for many, many years, retired now. And my brother is today a Green Bay, Wisconsin police officer. And I also have a lot of military in my family. Shout out David Harnish. Shout out Cody Harnish. I got to do it. But I have a lot of pride for those people, because they're serving our communities. And yeah, they've witnessed things that I've told in this story too. They've seen it. They would attest to it. And there'd be things that they probably agree with and disagree with, just like any other profession. And as an actor, you're always hoping to nail those things. Right. I wanted to nail those things. I didn't want to play this guy like a puss. I didn't want to play this guy like anything other than what he actually was. All business, but he had a different frame of mind than I would have had approaching that job. If I was a police officer, see, that's the dichotomy. I had to sort of go, I don't like this guy very much because he's racist. He's a bigot, and he's using the badge, the gun, the power of the law behind him to enforce his bigotry, his racism, all the things that in the black and brown communities are complaining about, as they should be, right? So I decided I should play that guy exactly the way that they feel they're treated by the guy like that. I should play that guy, because that's the story they're telling, right? They're not telling a story about the nice cop. They're telling a story about the cop who killed the innocent black man, right? So that's the story. And you got to serve that justice. Whether you like it or not, you have to find a way to be curious by it and feed your intellect by it. So I did. I allowed it to happen, and it ended up serving all of us well. It served me well. And the movie's doing well in the festival circuit. Hopefully you guys get to see it in 23.
Oh, nice. Something to look out for. So going back to that movie, The 4 Points, I checked out the preview, and I love it, and I can't wait for it to come out. How did that come about?
Raul Perez. Raul Perez, dear friend of mine. And I'm a fan of his too. Like, I got to tell you, not just to see my friend, but I'm also a fan. I'm a fan of a lot of my friends. It's kind of funny. Like, I've got some friends that do really well as actors and directors, and I'm fans as fighters, athletes. Man, I'm friends. I'm fans of those friends. Got a call to do it. It started off originally, it was going to be a TV series, like a pilot episode. And then a buddy of mine and I were sitting and talking about it. And shout out to Mike Hughes, who's the producer of a Netflix series called Blood of Zeus. He's a producer for that show on Netflix. It's phenomenal, by the way. Go check that out. If you haven't seen it and you like animation, gory animation, check it out. Him and I were sitting down. He has nothing to do with the movie that I'm in, right? Where he's literally one of my best, he's my brother. And he goes, that should be a movie, dude. I'm like, I know. Shouldn't be a series. This is a movie, right? So I had a talk with Raul on it. And I'm a producer on this movie as well. This is my first, by the way, guys, this is my first starring role. Breakout role for Dustin here. But, and thank you, Raul, for giving me this opportunity, because I'm just thankful. Thank you. He heard me, what I had to say about that, and he thought it was a good idea as well, Raul, and said, let me get back to you. He talked with our executive producer and financier, Kevin Kelly, and they decided that we were going to just make this a feature film. And it ends up being this rad, kick-ass, action-packed, drama, heartfelt, emotional gangster cop flick. I'm super proud of it. It's going to probably be out sometime in 23. We just wrapped it about 2 months ago. It's been in post. So I'm really looking forward to see how it performs and what possibilities that brings. I can't wait for you guys all to see it.
So what kind of character do you play in that movie?
Dude, interesting question. So, I'm a white guy, obviously, but I play obviously a white man, right? You can't do anything else about that. But I play a guy with a Latin edge to him. He grew up with all the essays, in the neighborhood, in the barrio, man, in LA, and like that South Central East LA area. And, I have that swagger. I mean, dude, I grew up in Northern California here with you in this area. And we know those groups of guys well, right? The Norteños, there's a certain lingo in our Latin community. I like to say I'm a part of that community because,
you are.
Because, my family, the Casares family, they're really well known in agriculture down here in Salinas, which is where we are right now in Salinas Valley. And that's what I grew up with, my family. They're all Mexicano, and I'm the cream of the coffee. So I'm white boy dust. They used to call me pan güero, pan dulce. My first job was picking vegetables in the fields. And Hugo put me out to work out there when I was like 14, 15 years old. And it taught me a lot, man. I learned another language. I learned that form of respect. I learned how to bust your ass. And so there, I felt, and I know my buddy Raul, the director, he knows this about me. And I think he trusted that I could fit into that and not be cheesy and not seem like I was overdoing it. And I really hope it came out like that. But I did my best. And luckily, I had the right guys around me in the movie. We got some real bangers in our movie.
I saw that.
There's a couple in there that, not all of them, there's a couple in there that are real dudes.
Yeah.
In like, they're in the clica, you know? I actually loved the crap out of those guys. I love those guys. They're like, they showed me how to like walk and talk, and they kept me accountable. They held me accountable. They're like, yo, man, it's not easy to say, Holmes. Like, you had it. Don't forget. Don't lose that. Just little things like that. They would help me stay in character. Because, you know, if that's not the life you live every day, you know, you have to remember to find ways to bring yourself back, to stay committed. And so I got to have that experience, and they signed off on it, which is really good.
I'm so excited for this movie, man. I think it's going to be a banger. It really is. Yeah,
me too, man. It's one of those things that you do in your career where you don't know what's going to happen next, and there's something exciting about that. But you know what happened. You know what you made with those guys. And all I can say is I hope and can't wait for the world to see it.
Yeah, I can't either, man. So I also want to talk about your wife, because we want to give her her flowers.
For sure.
I mean, I think, you know, wives don't get the credit that they deserve.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, so how did you meet her?
Shout out Alejandra Maria Alejandra Angel Harnish. She's got like a lot of names.
Yeah.
She's a very beautiful Colombian lady. I met her on a dating website, oddly enough. LA is hilarious, man. And I'm sure all of you that are watching this right now can attest. Meeting the opposite sex, or whatever you floats your boat nowadays, isn't easy. You know, everyone's buried in their phone. Nobody looks up anymore. You know, it's like everyone's walking down with their head down like this because they're in their phone all the time.
Right.
It's the death of humanity, I swear. Or at least chivalry, right? But I didn't do too bad, you know, with the ladies. I mean, being a single guy, but I always wanted more. I always wanted, there was a hole in my heart that was never filled. I wanted love. I wanted to have a mate. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children. I always wanted that in my life. And I always wanted a daughter. So her and I met on a blind date after I'd already been on all these wild blind dates, dude. Like, yeah, I won't go there. But yeah, man, it was a wild. I could write a book on that. Dustin's dating history. Oh man,
we look forward to that.
That was interesting. That was something else. But then I met Alejandra. Place I used to go to all the time. It's closed now. It's called the Churchill. It used to be part of this hotel called the Orlando, the corner of Orlando and Third in 3rd Street in the West Hollywood, Beverly Grove area of Los Angeles. I was living right behind it. Shout out to my buddy Kevin Connolly, who owns Goal. Kevin Connolly from Entourage. He owns this place called Goal. I don't even know if he's going to keep it and hold on to it anymore, but that was like the go-to gym in the neighborhood. I miss it so much. I don't know if they're going to either bring it back or if he's going to sell it. The pandemic, you can thank the pandemic for that. So I met her at the Orlando, and then my plan was to take her if she was going to be cool, right? Because you never know what you were going to meet on these dating websites. This was a blind date. So at this point, I was just so over it. I'm spending like hundreds of dollars a week taking these girls out to dinner because you got to pay, right? You can't let them pay. And if you're going to, even if it's to a coffee or a little cafe for a meal, it's always $100. It's always $100 or $200. It got really expensive, man. And I was broke at the time, you know, but I was searching. I was investing in that part of my life. That's the way I looked at it. You know, if you can't win, you can't win if you don't play, right?
Right.
So after going through all that on this dating crap, in walks this beauty. And it was like a scene of a movie where like the freaking wind hits her hair, and it's like she starts walking in slow-mo, and like this Barry White song is playing in the back of my head, and I probably look half stupid, like with drool coming out of my mouth, because I'm like, whoa. And I didn't dress up that night. I just had like a flannel. I'm a boots and jeans flannel kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I had a big beard at the time. I probably looked like a biker, which is not my normal look, and it probably didn't appeal to her too much. But I should have cleaned myself up, because at the moment she walked through the door and I saw her, and I was like, damn, what am I doing? It immediately threw me into like this little like, oh crap, I didn't really prepare for this. And she was lovely. Just the respect. None of these girls had ever shown me any sort of like class. Mm-hmm. Sorry guys, and Gen X, Gen Z, whatever the hell you are, get your act together. You know, when someone takes you out, put your phone down. When someone opens the door for you, say thanks. Simple stuff like that. I'm not going to lecture you. I'm going to stop now. But she did all that. She was a class act all the way through. And that made me totally smitten, dude. I was like, I'm going to marry her.
Yeah.
I knew from the second she walked through the door, she was going to have my child. That's weird to say, pretty ballsy to say and think, actually. But I knew it. So shout out to you, honey. And shout out to my daughter, Emilia, because now she's here. And that fulfilled all of my dreams in my heart. And
That's
everything.
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And how was the work-life balance before your child and after?
You know, we go through what probably most married people go through. I mean, it's not perfect, okay? We go through our ups and downs. I love her to death. You know, I would never do anything to hurt her. I would protect her. I'd walk in front of a train for her if I had to. And my child, obviously. But I would say in terms of work, my wife has helped me succeed. You know, that's the one thing she's never made me feel insecure about, because of the kind of job I have and the dream that I seek. Mm-hmm. Most people would have turned and walked the other way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have anything to do with me, because you're broke. You don't have $1 million to cash them in on. They can't pull anything out of you. You couldn't squeeze anything out of me at the time. I didn't have much. And she stuck around for that. She knew that. She knew what she was getting into. She came from a pretty decent, wealthy background. She could just turn around and go home if she wanted to. But that wasn't in her blood really either. She's a hard worker, mm-hmm. and she had dreams and aspirations of her own. And luckily, ours didn't get in the way.
Okay.
They kind of complemented each other. She's in wardrobe. She's a stylist.
Oh, awesome.
And she ended up hooking me up with a good friend, Lily Singh. Lily Singh is made it off of being a major like YouTube influencer, making like sketch comedy videos. She got her own show on NBC, which is where my wife met her and was working with her. And then my wife was pregnant. She worked through her whole pregnancy. I had no job at the time. This was during the pandemic. So most of the industry was shut down, but there was still live television, right? Mm-hmm. So she had a job in that. And Lily loved her by the grace of God. And somehow, one day, you know, I'd always told my wife, don't push my name around over there. Don't try to get me an acting job. Don't do that, because this is your job. And you don't need to bring me into that. This is your thing, and I don't want you to compromise that in any way, shape, or form. And that'll make us look desperate. You know, like, don't do that. So she listened to me. And when she was about to go on maternity leave, I guess it just kind of happened organically. The producer was talking with her. She saw my picture on my wife's phone, and she goes, "Is that your husband?" And she said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Is he an actor?" And my wife said, "Actually, yes, he is." And they said, "I would love to bring him in on a show, on an episode. Would he be up for that?" And she's like, "Yes, he would." And that was like a dream come true. It got me in the union. Mm-hmm. It took me forever to get in the union. That got me in the union. And since then, working with Lily, she canceled her show. Mm-hmm. After that on NBC. Now she does a bunch of stuff independently as an actress. and still very much involved with her YouTube channel or Instagram channel. She makes a lot of sketch comedies. Like if you looked on my Instagram page, you'd see me working with Sophia Bush on there. Lily made that happen. She directed that. It's an ad campaign for women in the workplace. It was pretty cool. And I've done a bunch of stuff with her. I'm going to re-release, or I'm sorry, not release. I'm going to repost this Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus video her and I did for last year's Christmas, where we play Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus in marriage counseling.
Oh, I think I came across that video.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's like, stuff like that. I'm just blessed to be able to work with her.
That's awesome, man. Beautiful. So thank you so much for your time. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
Guys, thank you very much for checking us out here and tuning in. You can find me on Instagram, Dustin.Harnish, DustinHarnish. I'm also on Facebook, Dustin Harnish. Twitter, Dustin-Harnish11, I think. Just Google, Google. But I hope you guys get a chance to check out the movies I've got coming out this year. I've got four movies and one television show. Do you mind if I blast those real quick?
Ahead, dude. Yeah.
The television series I'm really excited about. I think it's I don't want to say where it's going to land yet because that's sort of unknown at the moment. But it's called Secrets and Yards. If you guys like football, I'm a massive 49er football fan, but just football in general. Like if you've ever seen the show Ballers. It's not, I don't want to say it's a show like that, but it's a show in that sort of ballpark. Ballers, right? Secrets and Yards. I got a couple of friends on that movie, on that TV series. My PR, LaCheryl Smith, shout out to that young lady. She is a blessing from above. I didn't really get to elaborate on her today, but I have to say her name.
Yeah.
LaCheryl Smith at L Group PR Co. L Group PR. Man, what a blessing you are, LaCheryl, and I love you as a sister. Thank you for everything you're doing. She's also directing and owns the script and the rights to the script for Secrets and Yards. Okay. And she casted me in it. The 4 Points that I'm starring and directed by Raul Perez. LA Undercover, who's directed and stars Omar Cook and Adonis Armstrong. Omar Cook's also in the 4 Points. He's a badass in that movie. What else do we got? The Ice Cream Stop. Did I cover them all? The Ice Cream Stop. I think I covered. Oh, Suicide Sam.
Never heard of that.
Suicide Sam. It's this like dark demon character that I play. Don't know what's happening with that yet. I think that's kind of a hush thing. It's going to be pretty cool though. It's a thriller, psychological thriller horror thing, and I play Suicide Sam.
Ooh, dope. Can't wait to see that.
Directed by Nick Oceano. Shout out, Nick Oceano.
Let's do it. And one last question. What would you tell that one person who is trying to pursue their dream but is finding it difficult and wanting to give up?
Don't. Believe in yourself. Don't give up. Don't listen to all the noise. Be a racehorse. Put the blinders on so you can just see straight.
Love it. Thank you for listening. If this brought value to you, please do me a favor, like and subscribe, and share it with someone that needs to hear this. This is Evolve with Alex G Podcast. Take care and spread love. I'm stuck blowing this endo. Got my eyes locked on the benzo. I'm stuck blowing this endo, bitch.